On this episode, Virginia Tech men's tennis coach Jim Thompson stops by. Hey everybody, I'm Tarek Merchant, and this is the IMRecruitable show. Coach Jim Thompson, thank you for joining me. You've been at Virginia Tech for quite some time. You've been an experienced coach, so I wanted to have an opportunity to sit down with you today, pick your brain on college tennis, the process, and you even have a boy here at this national tournament who's playing, so it'd be great to get your perspective as a coach, as a parent. So we'll start off by letting you introduce yourself and giving a little background about your story.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
I've been at Virginia Tech now for 20 years. I was first at Anderson Junior College as a women's coach, and I went to Chattanooga and did both the men and the women, and then to Virginia Tech, where I've been, a part of 3 different conferences. We were first in the Atlantic 10 conference, and then we went over to the Big East, and now member of the ACC, and been a great experience for me. My family lives in that area, so it's been a good journey.
Awesome. And did you play college tennis?
I played college tennis at Davidson College in North Carolina. Great time there with Coach Jeff Frank, one of my mentors, and was a great experience.
So what got you excited and interested to be a college coach? Was it something you thought you would do when you were in college because you loved the experience, or was it something that you decided to do later on?
So it's a funny story, actually. Yeah. I was pre-med. I wanted to be a doctor, and I chose Davidson. Their acceptance rate into medical school is like 99%.
Yeah, amazing school. Yeah.
and so I chose Davidson for that reason. And I think Jeff Frank, as I mentioned, my mentor, was just an instrumental role in my life. It played was great for me during that time as I was growing up, and encouraged me to get into coaching after I decided that I didn't want to do medical school. Every afternoon I was kind of looking at the courts and going, hey, I'd rather be playing tennis than studying in a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think I pursued it from there after that.
Okay. And you've been coaching 20 years. You have a ton of experience. When you come to a tournament, you're scouting players to potentially recruit for your team, what are some of the characteristics you're looking for in a player?
Well, I think there's lots of different things, but obviously guys that have speed and agility and that have good balance, but also guys that have good character and compete hard and all the time. I like to see guys that can compete. I think that's something special here at Kalamazoo that you notice about all the players. You never see anyone go away. The matches are never over until they're really over, and I think that says a lot about the guys. They have a lot of heart. Guys that don't have flaws technically is also obviously very important.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is that they compete hard and have heart.
Yeah. You're a parent. Your boy's playing in this tournament, right? Which I'm sure is an interesting experience. I mean, you're a coach and you got to do your job there, and then you got to do your job as a parent. What do you think the role is for a parent? Just period. When they're helping their kids, be the best they can, and they want to get them to college tennis one day. What's their role in the process?
It's a great question, and it's been an interesting experience to be a parent and not, necessarily be a coach. To be here. It's hard. It's a hard role as a parent because the kids are getting older, and you got to give them room to develop on their own. I think you have to just be the encourager a lot more so than the coach, and let the coaches do their role. I know that a lot of the kids here at Kalamazoo have coaches with them, and it's tough because the parents invest a lot of money and a lot of time, and I now see that as a parent side. And you want what's best for your kid, but not always winning. I think people put so much emphasis on winning. Sometimes winning isn't the lesson that you learn the most from, and so always try to look for the lesson that's involved in it. I think as a parent is the best lesson that they can learn. I mean, I'm certainly learning as a parent as we go what to do and what not to do, and I think all parents are.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to do the best you can, right? And you work with it. What should these players be doing? You know, what did you tell your son as he prepared for this tournament where there's tons of college coaches, you know, here to watch these players play, and potentially he's going to get an opportunity to play for one of these schools? What did you tell him? What advice did you give him?
Well, I told him, really, to be honest, I told him, hey, don't worry about the college coaches, because you know you're coming to Virginia Tech.
That's it. Don't worry about it. You're playing for me.
Yeah, so to try to take a little pressure off. I think sometimes the kids put too much pressure and too much emphasis on it, and it is a difficult thing here, especially where there are, you know, 50 coaches courtside, and you feel like, gosh, if I mess this up, I'm not going to find a college. And,
that's right.
But I think playing in the moment is something that they've been working on since they were 12. You know, like learning how not to be, you know, thinking too far ahead, or, you know, oh gosh, what if I just messed up? And so for me, it's staying in the moment, and they've been doing that. But you know, it's a real good lesson here when there's so much pressure and so much on the line.
That's right. I mean, and that's what sports is about, right? Like, I mean, you kind of live for these moments as athletes, and I think it's so important. Like, you know, whether they're going to a showcase, exposure event, tournaments, there's tons of coaches. The more experiences they have, right, the better, sort of more comfortable they get, the more prepared they are. And then if you take that element of pressure off and you say, look, just you're going out there to compete just like you do every day, right?
Right, exactly.
It's no different.
Exactly.
You don't have to act any different, because eventually you're going to be the real you, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what do you do with your team? What's the philosophy with your team in terms of your coaching philosophy? What do you try to do with the players that come to Virginia Tech, and what is your mission and goal after they've graduated, or once they've gone through those 4 years?
It's a great question, because you know, I've reflected on that a lot lately, especially with my own child coming up. And you know, obviously, first of all, you're trying to make them follow a process. You know, trying to figure out, okay, how do I get to be the best player you can be? Right. And so finding that, like, what it is, that the path that makes them better. You know, like maybe they need to improve their serve, or you know, to give them the map of what they need to do. But I think also on top of that, I think college coaches have a huge role in their development as people as well. And I think at Virginia Tech, that's something I strive a lot for, you know, to try to make sure that they're becoming better people. We've had a great track record of improving players, and that's something that I'm really proud of. But I think it's also more about creating a culture and an environment that allows them to improve around each other. You know, they help each other more than I really influence them. I think they all improve, but I think it's a lot more about the guys. And if you get the right guys that are all working towards a common goal and a common theme, that takes care of itself.
Yeah, and you talked about, you touched on right now, you know, improving your game. So one of the big questions that always comes up now that universal tennis rating is around, and it's like, okay, I'm a 12, how do I get to a 13? And, you know, in the same regard as the juniors trying to do that to maybe get to the level they need for a specific type of school that they're dreaming to go to, and say, that's the level I got to be to compete there. I mean, you do also do that with your team and say, you know, we're ranked X number now, and in order for us to get it, we got to get better, right? So can you talk a little bit more about that development process? Like, how do you get one UTR level better?
So first of all, I think that it's hard, because I'm a big fan of UTR. I think it's a great tool. It's a great, it's changing the way we recruit, and it's changing a lot of the way people look at things. But I think when people focus on trying to improve at a number, they get too caught up in one thing. They lose sight of the real thing, and that is the improvement process. That's really not a part of the roadmap of improving your UTR. Your UTR will improve
naturally, right?
If you improve your game, if you improve your serve, or you improve your footwork, or you improve your volley, or whatever it is that your coach is working with you on. And so I try to strive more of the process of the improving than, you know, necessarily, and they go hand in hand, obviously. Yeah. You know, if you do that,
it's just like a ranking. It's just like your tennisrecruiting.net stars. Those will all improve when you improve the game, right? And so it sounds like you're telling me that developing more strengths, right? So improving that serve, for example. Absolutely. I mean, do you work on the weaknesses, or do you work on your strengths and try to make them better?
It's a great question. I think most coaches work on weaknesses way too much. You know, you have to also look at how your winning points and what your strengths are, and if you're not trying to play into those strengths, then you're not going to really improve, I think. I mean, one of our best players ever, Aaron Marchetti, you know, he had a great forehand, no backhand, and everybody worked on his backhand. And I said, let's just work on your forehand, and how do we get more forehands? Don't worry about your backhand, because
Right.
if you're hitting backhands, we're not going to win matches. So,
Right.
I think you have to work on strengths just as much or more than the weaknesses.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's kind of like that in life too, and in business. Like, if you're got certain skills, you kind of play on those skills and you try to perfect them even more. And then there's other ways to manage your weaknesses, and I think that sports can play a big role in that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's the team culture like that you like to instill with the players? Are you a team that's really rowdy and have that sort of football style of tennis approach, which some teams do, or is this more like the individuals and everybody just works together? What's that chemistry like?
I think
that you like to
I think at
promote?
Virginia Tech it's more of a family feel. We're not we are a football school, but we don't have that football feel to it. We do individual stuff, and I think we try to make it so that we're individually working on your game. What's best for you? What's best for one guy may not be what the other guy needs, and so we do try to tailor it to that. But I think the main thing is that we try to get everybody on the same page, that hey, we're working together as a team, trying to get better, and trying to get people to set those goals, and learn how to set goals. It may not be that you reach every goal we set, but like you mentioned, in life and in business, it's the same. So if you learn it now, it's way easier for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we really do is in college tennis. We teach them how to prepare for the rest of their life.
Want to give you a fun question here. What's maybe your best college tennis memory thus far? You've had a good long career. I'm sure you have some great memories.
We have some great.
What's something that stands out to you?
There's so many different stories I could tell. We probably don't have time, but
give me one. Give me your best one.
There's probably one of the more memorable moments was a kid named Adel Abbas. Was an Egyptian boy. He probably was overweight, to say it bluntly.
Sure.
He needed to lose weight, and he really worked hard. And it was our first year in the ACC. Our first match in the ACC was against Georgia Tech, and the match was he had not played all year, basically, or his years before that season. Worked really hard to get in the lineup, dropped all his body fat, and it was 3-all. It came down to his match, and the last point, the ball hit the net and fell over. So one of the better memories.
Yeah.
We won our first match in the ACC against Georgia Tech, and it was for the boy, because he put the work in, not just because he got lucky and it got over, but the amount of work he put in, and I could see the excitement in him that it paid off.
Yeah, that you put in
one of the better memories. But there are so many. I mean, we've had.
It sounds like you're really a coach that really enjoys helping those athletes out and seeing their success. Would you say that was like the most satisfying thing about coaching college tennis is watching these kids develop and grow over the years that you have them and seeing them do great things?
Oh, I mean, I think, you're happy when they succeed and you've worked with them on something, but I also think it's the most rewarding is when they come back years later and finally get what you were trying to
teach them.
And I've had, now that I've been in it long enough, I'm having more guys, they're starting to have kids or whatever it is, and I see.
My dad used to always tell me a quote, and I don't know if I have it exactly right, but it's like Mark Twain. I think he used to say that when I was 16 years old, I used to think my father was the most, stupid man ever. But when I turned 21, I figured out how much the old man had learned in the last 5 years. But really, it was sort of, I think it was somewhere around those lines. But that's kind of the storyline. So I can understand that. I mean, even myself over the last few years, I even say, and I have a young son, it's just really starting to understand that now, many years later, what my coaches and my parents and everyone was trying to teach me. And I think that value is invaluable, really. It's priceless. Yeah. What would be the best piece of advice that you could give student athletes and their families? If you had to pick one thing, what would be the best piece of advice?
That's a tough question, and to pick only one thing is hard. But certainly stay with the process. Find out what you're trying to. Set a goal of where you're trying to go. Whether it's college tennis or beyond, and then keep chipping away at the process. Not trying to do it any shortcuts. Not trying to think that you're gonna, just because you get a ranking or a UTR that you're getting around something. You have to, there's no hiding in the end. You develop the skills or you don't, and the character is one of the hardest things to develop, and people, they forget about the mental and that kind of the development. And so stick with the process and do those things right, and you'll come closer to your goal than you can ever imagine usually.
Great advice. Coach, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yep,
Best of
no
luck.
problem. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.